Hey everybody, I'm here with Heather Puffer with Florida Strategic Insurance. She has been my go-to girl for insurance for, I want to say about 5 years now maybe.
Yeah.
I went to a meeting where her and her husband were talking about flood insurance, and they just were so detailed and so informative, and I felt like they're the same way with my clients. So wanted to ask her a few questions about what's going on in insurance right now and how it's affecting the real estate market. So Heather, there was recently a bill that came out that had a big impact on insurance. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so that was called Senate Bill 2A, and really it is a bill that was passed to curb the rising rates of insurance. Most of you have probably received your homeowner's insurance renewal and you see that it's crazily expensive, super high, and that primarily has to do with insurance fraud or frivolous roofing lawsuits that have been filed. That's really increasing the cost of reinsurance for homeowners insurance companies. So what's a few things Senate Bill 2A is doing to try to bring more stability to the market is they're reducing the number of years or the timeline it takes to file a claim. So homeowners used to have 2 years to file a claim, and they've cut that down to 1. So that should help, if there is a catastrophic event, you should file it within a year. That seems pretty reasonable. Yeah. They passed a prompt pays law, which means the insurance company has to pay or deny a claim within 60 days. So it used to be 90 days. And you can imagine if you're in your house that has damage, 90 days is a long time to wait, to figure out if it's going to be paid or not. So they dropped that down to 60, which is still a lot of time, but it's better than within the 90 days.
Okay.
Let's see. The insurance company must also respond within 7 days of filing a claim. It used to be 14 days. So they have to get back with you within a week, acknowledging that you filed that claim.
Okay. Is this a Florida thing or is this a federal thing?
So this is specific to Florida. Senate Bill 2A was passed specifically for Florida. Our risk is just so unique because of the hurricanes and all of the roofing fraud. So it was specific to Florida.
So all of those roofers going door to door being like, hey, you should file an insurance claim to get a new roof. They are a big reason that the rates have gone up so much?
Correct. So there's something called attorney fee multipliers, and that's where basically when there's a claim against an insurance company, if there's litigation opened up, the insurance company has to pay the fee multipliers. So a standard roof that should cost $20,000 to $30,000 is costing $100,000 to $120,000 just because of the litigation that is adding up. Basically, the roofers found a loophole and they're really sticking it to the insurance companies.
So they're just exploiting it?
Correct.
Okay, well, that's unfortunate.
So there's also something called assignment of benefits.
Yes.
A lot of these roofers or contractors have assignment of benefits verbiage written into their contracts, and most homeowners don't even know what that is or that they're signing off on it. But essentially, the homeowner is signing a document saying, I'm giving up my right to speak on my behalf of my insurance policy, and I'm giving it to you, my roofer. So the roofer can say, oh, this, is going to be X amount of dollars, and I'm in control of the claim now. The homeowner isn't. So there's a lot of fraud with the assignment of benefits as well.
Geez, so it's on multiple fronts.
Yes, so that's something that will be curtailed with the Senate Bill 2A.
Okay, so when are you expecting this to actually impact the rates that we're seeing?
Sure. So I would say anytime legislation is passed, it's usually like an 18 to 24 month process until we see any real reform or anything in the homeowner's pocket. So what's going to happen is the reason the rates are so high is because of this increased fraud, frivolous claims, which is causing the insurance company's insurance, which is called reinsurance, to get much more expensive. So when the insurance company has to buy insurance that is double or triple what it used to be, they have to pass that down to the homeowner.
Okay.
So eventually, hopefully in a year or two, those costs of reinsurance will go down, and then the price of homeowners insurance, will level out.
So probably end of 2024, mid 2025.
Yeah. Unfortunately, nothing really happens too quickly with
Yeah.
legislation.
Nope, never. So, if you have been shopping for insurance lately in Florida or buying a house, you'll probably see that your only options are Citizens and a few other smaller companies. Heather, why is it just Citizens in Florida, and what's going on with that? It's like they have a monopoly over Florida.
Yes. So Citizens was originally created to be the carrier of last resort.
Okay.
They were supposed to be, if a homeowner couldn't get insurance in the private market, they went to Citizens. Unfortunately now, they are so underpriced compared to the private market because the private market has to buy that reinsurance. We're seeing they're half or more than half of the premium of private carriers. So most private carriers have pretty strict underwriting guidelines.
Right.
And Citizens is a little bit more lenient. And a lot of homes just aren't qualifying with the private carriers, so they're being forced into Citizens. With Citizens, they are trying to change that a little bit. They're now requiring roof eligibility. They don't accept just a 4-point inspection that tells us the age of the roof. Because we're going back to the roofing thing again, but because there's so much fraud there, they require a roof permit or a paid in full invoice and photos showing that a new roof was put on.
That was a big shocker for me recently. I had a deal that went under contract in December, but it was closing in January, and the buyer was shopping different insurance companies, and the roof had X amount of years left on it, and it was within an HOA that the HOA had replaced it. But I still needed that permit or the invoice, and the HOA had no idea. So I had to hunt down the roofer and be like, hey, you did this like 10 years ago. Can you please get me the information?
So unless the roof is original to when the home built, say the home was built in 2015 or something, we do need that documentation. Luckily, we found ways to pretty much go to most property appraisers' websites and do the permit search, and we can find those permits.
Especially here in Pinellas County, it's a lot easier than like Hillsborough or Pasco.
Yes, that's true for sure. So we can do that extra step. We're also trying to work with inspectors and just tell them this is a new requirement. So if you can go ahead, they have to do the search on the front end. So if they can provide us a copy of that permit, it makes things easier. If there was no permit available, you can still submit the policy to Citizens and they'll review it. They usually do their underwriting after we bind a policy. They will be able to do pre-underwriting, so they can do it on the front end, but we're seeing it's taking like 7 to 14 days for them to review a policy.
Wow.
So if you cut that too close to closing and we don't have an answer if they're going to accept the documentation we give them or not, that can mess up closing. So
Jeez. Or even like as an agent or a buyer trying to get that figured out within your inspection period, because if you're gonna need to request that, it's gonna have to be within your inspection period. So that really changes things. Because I normally try to do a really quick inspection period to benefit the buyer's offer, but that's gonna kind of change the way that I write offers now.
Yeah. So I would say if you have a good inspector, which I'm sure you do, maybe ask them to start just pulling the permit on the front end, just so it's, we know it's there and you don't have to wait, find out, 2 days before closing that now you have to wait 2 weeks to see what they're going to accept.
So I should probably start looking at that even before we submit an offer on something, because it's pretty much public record if the owner's not able to provide that information or doesn't know or doesn't remember. I'll have to start doing that.
Yeah. So they are one of the companies. They don't really have an age requirement on the roof. Most private companies say a shingle roof can't be 10 years old, or some go up to 15 years old. Citizens doesn't have that age of roof guideline.
Right.
But they want to the 4-point to say that the roof has at least 4 years remaining life expectancy.
Okay.
And in that case, they'll be able to keep their policy for at least a year.
Okay.
So the inspectors do really play a big role. But one other thing is every insurance company now is going out and doing their own inspection within the first 30 days of writing a new policy.
So they're actually going out now. They're not just doing because I know anytime that I've gotten a policy in the past couple of years, they've just asked me to send pictures or a video. So they're actually sending people out now?
Yeah, just because of all the fraud.
Okay.
Not only do they require that we provide inspections on the front end, they're also going out and doing their own.
Oh,
now,
wow.
some of them are just drive-by inspections,
Mm-hmm.
but most often we're seeing that they are looking at the roof, electrical, heating and air, and plumbing, just like the initial 4-point inspection did. They want to be very certain of what type of home they're insuring.
That's probably driving up the cost as well, because if you're having to hire people to send out and do this, that's going to increase costs as well.
Correct.
So basically, people don't commit fraud. Just don't do it.
Yeah. So a good analogy is, homeowners insurance is there for your use, of course, if there is a legitimate claim, but kind of think of it as tires on your car. So if the tires on your car are going bald, it's your responsibility to keep yourself safe and
Right.
to replace your tires. You're not going to call your auto insurance company and ask them for a new pair of tires or a new set of tires. So similarly, when your roof is bad from wear and tear and just years of the sun beating down on it, it's the homeowner's responsibility to make sure no damage is done to their house. So
Right.
they should just replace it as routine maintenance that comes along with being a homeowner.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You're responsible.
Yeah, exactly.
So being in Florida, I remember that years ago when you and Mike were talking about it, basically the entire state of Florida is in a flood zone, right? But it's just variable levels. Is that kind of what it is?
So, technically, and we did see with Hurricane Ian, if the storm's bad enough, all of Florida could flood, you
Right.
know. So there are 3 main flood zones in Florida: an X flood zone, which means it's not considered a high-risk zone and lenders would not require flood insurance, an AE flood zone, and then a VE flood zone. AE is what we typically see around Pinellas, Hillsborough, Pasco County.
Right.
And then VE takes into account the velocity of water. So that's more like beachfront homes.
Right.
Which we do see in Pinellas as well. But yeah, flood insurance has really changed. FEMA came out with risk rating 2.0, and they're now using the latitude and longitude of where the home is to come up with the rate. So unfortunately, it's a lot more expensive than it was in prior years.
Because it used to basically just be based off of the elevation certificate as well as whatever that zone was designated as, correct?
Correct. So in the past, the elevation certificate did really help them with ratings. It would tell us where the home's first living floor sat in relation to the base flood elevation in the area. So when risk rating 2.0 came out, they kind of did away with elevation certificate requirements. They're no longer required at all.
Oh, okay.
And yeah.
What?
News to you. So they'll never hurt a home. So if you have one available, definitely, send it to me and I'll look into it. But they're also not really helping as much as they used to.
Okay.
So if anyone has one, they don't expire. So we can use an elevation certificate from 20 years ago with anybody's name on it. But yeah, the ratings really changed, and we're even seeing new construction homes where the first floor is all garage and the second floor starts the first living floor. The insurance premiums are $2,000 or $3,000.
That was going to be my next question, because I know it used to be that if it was a single story on the water or single story in a flood zone, obviously that's a bigger risk, so it's more expensive versus the new construction. So is there still a variance like that, or is it more closely, is it more comparable now?
Yeah, I'd say The gap is closing.
Oh, wow.
Unfortunately, on the higher end though. Yeah, it's more comparable. Like rates are just high across the board.